I am Pamela Bob. I'm the creator of Livin On a Prairie, also in Livin On a Prairie. And I'm also the co-host, along with Dean Butler and Allison Arngrim, for the Little House 50th Anniversary podcast. And, oh, here you are. Hi, everyone. Showing up. Yay. Hello from Austria. Hi. So exciting.
Oh, that's got to be Martha. That's got to be Martha Keller from Austria.
Is it? Martha?
It has to be Martha Keller from
Keller. There she is. Wow, Martha, getting a shout out, personalized. Here he is, the man of the hour, Dean Butler, author of Prairie Man, which is coming out tomorrow. We're so excited. He's all of our hashtag imaginary boyfriends, and we love him. And I, on a personal note, love my Dean Butler. He's such a great friend and pal and coworker, and I am honored to be here. Dean, hello.
Well, since we all met you when you introduced Livin On a Prairie some years ago, we all fell in love with you. All members of the Little House family can't get enough of Pamela Bob. So, you have just been an awesome breath of fresh air and energy and positivity around what we do, and what you did validates the effort you made to create Livin On a Prairie, validates what we all did years ago. It was very flattering. Your character is sort of this little suppressed, little on the edge kind of person, but the fact that you chose to frame this around your love of Little House on the Prairie was just really fun. I'm only sorry that I didn't fly across the country to look into that gymnasium and see the guys in the support group. I said, I just don't know that I'm ready to fly across the country to stick my head in the gymnasium door.
It heads yes, the all-male group for men who love Little House on the Prairie. Yes.
Yeah, that would have been a part of that group.
Yes.
And, but, as the line said, only in New York.
Well, then the next time you come to New York, I'll show you where we filmed it. It's right around the block.
Okay, it's great. It was a very atmospheric little gym. It was very cool.
It was good. It was good.
Yeah.
But I'm you, Dean Butler. No, we're here for you because your book comes out tomorrow.
Well, it comes out tomorrow nationally, and it's been such an adventure to do this. And I've been doing multiple interviews a day for the last month in advance of the release of the book.
Yeah.
One of the things that I've talked about consistently is how this book came into existence. And I had been asked, telling the story about how I'd been asked for years by people who love Little House, the question being, when are you going to write your book? And I was always very cagey about it. I wasn't sure I wanted to step into that. I wasn't sure what I had to say.
What were you worried about? Or was it just that you didn't think?
Just thinking, well, what do I have to add to this? I mean, Melissa's written a book, Allison's written a book, Karen's written a book, Charlotte Stewart's written a book, Teddy Lester's written a book, Missy Francis has written a book, Melissa Sue Anderson's written a book, Jennifer Donati's just written a book, Baby Rose has just written a book, and Wendy Lou Lee, who was P. Grace, has written 2 books. Melissa's written 3 books. And in that answer came my answer. All these women in our cast have written books about their experience, somehow framed around Little House. That's my in. I'm the first guy in our group. Now, Kent McCrae, who was our wonderful producer, wrote a spectacular book about his career in television. It's an amazing book, and I recommend it. I think it's called Kent McCrae, Laughter, Love, and Television, or Love, Laughter. Michael's was Love and Laughter, Laughter and Love. Kent's was the opposite. But Kent Laughter, Love, and Television, or Love, Laughter, and Television. It's just a wonderful story. But anyway, I thought at that point, maybe I have something to say about this that's unique to the male perspective. I realized my story about the experience is my story. I'm not attempting to say my story is the right story, everyone else is the wrong story. Everybody's story is the right story.
Yeah, and you make that clear in your book, but I will say, as a fan, Dean Butler, you are such a beloved character on that show that I think anything you would have put out there, people would have been more than happy to get, because we do want to hear from you. We do. And I'm very fortunate because I got a sneak peek of the book and I've read the whole thing. And I told you this before we logged off, but it is a beautiful book. It's so lovely. And you know what I love about it too? The way you've written it is the way that you talk to people. So it feels like you're talking to me, like directly to the person that's reading it. And because we know what you sound like, we can hear you speaking it. It doesn't seem like, oh, this is disconnected from you and the essence of you. And that's a really, really lovely thing. And also, wait, I'm going to pull up some notes. Also,
pull up your notes.
Plug in the book. Okay, I'm going to name drop some things here for you. Okay. Dean talks about his career and the ups and downs and the ins and outs of his career and how he got started and sort of trouble in the middle and how it transformed into something else in your producing and documentarian life. But you have shout outs in your book, not just Michael Landon, Melissa Gilbert, and the Prairie people, but other stars like Stephen Sondheim, Stella Adler, John Lovitz, Kathy Griffin, William Shatner, and Madonna. When you started writing about Madonna, I was like, shut the front door. He has a Madonna story.
I love that. That was one of the cooler, look, that was a 15-minute indelible moment.
Still counts. She knows who you are. You had face-to-face contact with her.
I had fun. And the fact I could walk into this beautiful studio and hear this amazing song, one of her biggest hits of the 80s, is pounding away on the, or maybe it's 90s, pounding away on the studio monitors. And no one had heard the song yet. It wasn't out yet. But it was just this incredible thing. I was pretty knocked out by the whole experience. You'll have to read about it, get the name of the song and the story.
Sorry, I messed up. They'll still be surprised when they read the story.
Oh yeah, no, it's a good story. I mean, it's certainly, I saw Madonna in a different way than I imagined I was going to see.
Yeah.
When I was told Donna wants to meet you, I mean, that's how it came at me. Madonna wants to meet you. Oh. And I got the time and the place, and I'm expecting when I walk in the door that I'm going to see, I'm going to see the ultimate boy toy there. That is not what I saw. And it was really sort of a wonderful surprise. It said a lot about the crafting of an image. And, when it's time to work, it's time to work. And when it's time to be yourself, that's a different thing. And I was really impressed with her. I thought I have found as a performer and as a personality, I have found her at times annoying and off-putting and all that. But there's a lot of intention behind what she's doing.
Oh, she's a mastermind. Yeah, absolutely. Everything is intentional, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's just one of the juicy little tidbits in your book. I won't give away too much, but I'm just letting the people know that he does have some juicy tidbits in this book without being, salacious or anything like that. But I just love how human your story is and how, we all get to know you a bit better without you losing complete control over what you want to give away and what you still keep yourself.
I think that was one of the things that was really important as I sat down to work on this, is to say, well, I want to be honest with people, but I'm going to steal a phrase from Laura Ingalls Wilder, where I say, where my book is the truth, but it's not all the truth.
Yeah.
There's more truth that perhaps is not being shared in the book, but what I share is truthful. And so that was important. I think where certain relationships are concerned, where family's concerned, look, I've told, and I think I've shared enough so that people feel like they're getting some insight, but I'm not going so far that I didn't want to explode all over the pages of the book.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That was important.
Yeah, and I appreciate, even the way that you talked about your relationship with your father, which could be complicated, but the fact is I think most relationships with at least a parent is very complicated. And I don't even know how one could write it in a way to fully and adequately explain such complicated relationships, and where there's great love and then there's also a lot of other stuff. I thought you handled that really well. I could relate a lot.
Well, that's and I'm so glad. I think, when you look at the world and the totality of people, and millions and millions of people in the world, and for our differences, and we're all unique people, but there is commonality in life experience. I think something like this for a reader, and I know when I've been the reader on the other side of something, it's very validating to read that other people have the same issues that I have. I mean, that goes without saying. We want to feel like, okay, yes, we want to be unique and different, but we don't want to be so unique and that we feel like our life is a complete sideshow.
Right.
And, very few people really want to live in that space. Most of us want to live in a space where we feel like we have something in common with the people around us. And of course we do, because we're all living in essentially the same world, and we're getting a lot of the same inputs, and not totally the same, but we're getting, in broad strokes, a lot of the same inputs. So we have a lot of the same experiences, and just the function of growing up, the function of maturing, the function of discovering yourself leads to common experience. So I've got what you've got.
Yeah, it'll be interesting when the book comes out too, how much more you're going to get in terms of people either writing to you or contacting you, or if they see you in person in book signings or events, what they're going to end up sharing with you, their commonality, what they found in your book.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what, this is where the great mystery is.
Right.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen when this actually hits shelves and people start receiving the copies of this that they have purchased in advance. And, there have been really nice sales at Amazon and Barnes and Noble that going on for 3 or 4 or 5 months. There have been sales going on. It will be interesting to see how people respond to it. I'm fully prepared for, I'm believing, crossing fingers, hoping that there are people like you who read it and say, I really enjoyed this. Of course, you know me, we know each other now. So
yeah, but even in knowing you, I learned so much more about you. I really did.
Okay.
It was great. I loved it. And it's a nice, easy read too. Like, it's a pleasure to pick up the book and read it.
Yeah. Well, I'm curious what you thought of something I was really proud of in the book, or happy about, were the family pictures that showed, that of course, you haven't seen the pictures because you've read a PDF copy of this. There are no pictures in it. Oh, well, then when you get your hardcover copy of the book,
I'll be waiting.
You'll get family pictures. Think you'll get a kick out of. All little house will get a kick out of these pictures.
I was actually so sad I didn't see any of the pictures, because I was dying to see what you looked like, as a little boy, and in these, just first of all, out of curiosity, but second of all, reading these stories. And then I really wanted to allude back to the photo to get an image of you at that time as well.
I will tell you, I sort of, because of the blessings of the genetic talent that brought me into being, I was a cute kid, I was a cute little boy.
Were you a kid? Did you, I mean, you said you had skin issues, blah, blah, blah. I bet you did not have a really awkward adolescence, like how I had a really painfully awkward adolescence.
Oh, no. Well, listen, I think that's all that painfulness is in the body of the person who's experiencing it.
True.
I definitely, I felt like like a walking war zone every day when I looked at my face in the mirror. It
Oh,
was just awful.
it's
It
the
was
worst
awful.
time of like,
Everyone says that, but mine was really, I mean, it was on tetracycline and vitamin A. And I mean, I was doing all of this stuff to
yeah,
just stop the volcano from exploding on my face every day. It,
yeah.
it was, it was, I'm so lucky I don't have the scars that can come with that
Did it just
because,
grow up on its own after a certain time, or did you
I'm
just
sorry.
grow out of that? Did you just grow
Yeah.
out of it?
So I think by the time I was, I want to say by the time I was sort of 18 and a half, I had largely come through it. But those years, 13, 14,
So
15,
rough,
16, 17,
so rough,
not fun.
rough.
Not fun.
I had such a painful adolescence. I just like everything grew on like my hands and my feet grew, but my body didn't grow. I just got more and more apple shaped. And then I had bifocals, Dean. I had bifocals, I had glasses, braces. Oh God, it was just awful. It was just the worst,
Well,
terrible.
when you describe your feet grew and your hands grew, but nothing else grew, that could be a little
So
awkward.
it is awkward. That's why I was saying, like, I bet you were like, yeah, you might have had skin problems, but I bet if I looked at a picture of you at 13, you look like you, as opposed to if you looked at a picture of me at 13, you would
I
not
would
know who
know.
it
Really?
was.
Who is that person? Who is that? Who are those hands and feet? I have no idea who that person is. And the bifocal.
But I do have to say, and I have a 14-year-old son and a 6-year-old daughter, but my 14-year-old son, like he's in it, right? Like he's that age where things are just uncomfortable. And what I really didn't realize was that boys go through it just as bad as girls do. I really thought girls had it worse. Perhaps in some senses they do, but I didn't know boys had the same intense insecurities as well. And so it was, both experiencing it in my own household and then reading, parts of your book. It was like, oh, it's just a horrible time. It's such a tough time to be alive when you're an adolescent.
No, this is not an easy ride for anybody. I mean, this is the common experience that every human being has. And no matter how seemingly unscathed, and we all know those people, and we envied those people at that age where they seemed to barely get a blackhead.
Yes, they had it all.
All those, they were the most popular, they were the smartest, they were the best looking, they had no issues at all. Now, they probably didn't do it that way.
Yeah, sure. But
we did, as an observer, I did. They were perfect. And what was wrong with me?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess that is the universal thought. However, some are more obviously, tougher than others. We'll just leave it at that. I also love the way that you write about your relationship with Michael Landon. And I really got not just the love for him, but also the slight fear of him, but ultimately the total respect for him. And I loved how you wrote about it, because I do think it gave a unique insight as opposed to Melissa's experience, as opposed to other people's experience. And that I found really compelling and interesting. I think people really like hearing about it. Yeah, and you don't say anything about him that's disparaging. It's just, again, a slightly complicated relationship, but based in love.
Yeah, and I think it was a challenging time. I think that single way to address the Michael Landon situation is probably, there was no larger anxiety for me in writing this book because he looms so large in my life.
Yeah.
And the last thing, while I I've been living with some of the stuff that I've been feeling about this experience for 40 years. So when I started to write about it, it wasn't, members of my family were aware of issues, but I'd never really spoken
Of course.
about, publicly about it. And the challenge of it is that because of what Michael played and the beautiful way that he played what he played on television, is that, and the parts, between Charles Ingalls and an angel. I mean, really, anything you say, certainly about an angel, someone who's playing an angel, is going to be questioned because he's an angel and he's Charles Ingalls.
Right.
So, so it's like you're sort of walking on very dangerous ground. And then, I had people say to me who I respect a lot in the Little House world, and they said to me, as you write about him, remember, he can't respond to what you are saying.
Yeah.
And that part of it also weighs large on me, which is why it was so important to cover both sides of that coin, so that there was a tempered or a fully realized view of who Michael was in my life and who he is as part of my legacy. I mean, whatever legacy I have is directly connected to him. I mean, I make no bones about that. I mean, Michael is the reason I was there. He's the one who pulled the trigger. He said yes. So the gratitude I have because of that is enormous. The functional reality of working in that space every day, while 95% of the time, was pretty amazing. But it's human, it happened, but those things were jarring, and they had an impact that extended beyond those brief moments. And I think that's what I felt compelled to write about, because it's part of who I am. It's part of what makes me me. And I came into this, as I explained, in relationship, because of the relationship I have with my father. I came into this predisposed to being cautious with older male authority figures.
Right.
So it's like between my dad and Michael, it was just like ba-dum-bum. It was 1-2, boom, boom, rim shot. It was, I got the same thing from my dad that I got from Michael. And I hopefully, when people will make the connection when they read the book, they'll see a commonality experience there. It's not for not respecting and admiring these men for what they were, but they touch your life in a way that's that can be jarring.
And it's interesting to think that had you not had the father that you had, the good and the bad, that wouldn't have prepared you for the experience with Michael. There's a spiritual teaching that they say we choose our parents, and
that's it. And I have heard that. I don't know that
I don't know if I fully buy into it either, but certainly the lesson of caution and, knowing how to sort of maneuver that kind of male authority figure certainly, I suppose, helped you with once you were on set with Michael Dowling. But here's the other thing. Yeah. You were so young. I mean, we talk about Melissa Gilbert being young. Yes, young, but 22 to, what was it, 27 or 29 when the final films were done?
23 to 28.
I mean, those years are complicated and formative, and to know that you experienced this at such a young age also, that really hit home to me also, like, oh my gosh, what was I doing at 22? And imagine being thrust upon this stage like this then.
Well, on balance, and I'm sure you can appreciate this, I'm sure that readers appreciate this. On balance, it was spectacular to
Yeah.
be thrown into that, to be invited into that world. It was absolutely amazing. And I will say, and I say this in the book, every great thing that has happened to me in my life, virtually every great thing, has had a Little House connection. Something happened because of that. And so, on balance, it's all so good. And it is interesting how the threads of a life get pulled in a certain direction because of experiences that you have. And for me, that started off as very young with the growing up experience I had in my family, which I think led me to the Little House experience incredibly well. And I was completely unconscious of it when I walked in the door. I mean, I wasn't thinking about the fact that I had grown up on a family ranch with no running hot water and coal oil lamps at night to read, no electricity and coal oil lamps to play games and read stories at night, and those things, and riding horses every day in the summer months and all of that stuff. I did not walk in the door consciously carrying that in the door with me.
Yeah.
But as you know, as an actor, you carry everything in your life in the door with you when you come in the door. You don't even know how much you're carrying the door with you, but you're carrying everything.
Yeah.
And those decisions, I mean, you have to just walk with actors, it's a matter of walking into enough rooms so that you can ultimately walk into a room that's the right room.
Right,
and
right.
I was able to walk into a number of right rooms early on. Little House, of course, that room with Susan Sukman being the most consequential of those rooms, where everything that made me was perfectly in sync, it seems, with the mission that she had to find this guy. And that's been the incredible gift of my life, that there's just no end to that.
I know we're going to get to questions because people are asking questions.
Okay.
And I acknowledge all viewers right now. You're saying such lovely things. I am trying to read them as we're talking right now. So thank you. Thank you for listening to the podcast. Thanks for all the lovely things you're saying about Dean. And we'll get to some questions. I just had to say, I love how you say in the book, you thank Michael Landon mostly because had it been up to Melissa Gilbert, you would have not have been casted in the part.
I sort of feel like not to any malice on Melissa's part.
No, not at all.
I just think that judging from how she responded to me, not outwardly, but inwardly, when she first met me, which of course I didn't see any of the inward side when I met her. I just saw the confident, outgoing, very verbal prairie girl that I've been watching promos, and that here was Laura Ingalls. It's like, I got it.
Right.
I didn't get the abject terror that she was feeling, as she wrote in her book, oh shit, they hired a man.
Was that the first time you had heard her say that when you read her book? Or you guys must have talked about it. That was
no. That was the first time I'd ever heard that. And she put it, as I've come to know Melissa over, 45 years, Melissa doesn't pull punches. She basically, if she's in a mood to tell you what she's really thinking, she lets you know. What she's really thinking. She doesn't BS around. And that was one of those things where, her language can be pretty frank. And, and that was part of that. And look, she told that story in the foreword to the book. I asked her to write the foreword to the book. I wasn't sure what she would say. I'm so grateful that she did. And I asked Allison to write a foreword. And her forward was such a different thing, and really much more based on the experiences that she and I have been that Allison and I have been having together for the last 20 years.
Right.
Out doing Little House events. I mean, she has seen me in so many of those experiences as I've seen her. If she asked me to write a forward, well, one, my forward wouldn't be nearly as funny as her forward. I guarantee.
Both of the forwards were awesome.
But I could tell, I would be able to very accurately count Allison's ability to connect with people and her ability to observe what's going on. I think she did a great job capturing the vibe.
Melissa did too, and she owned up to saying, "Yeah, I was a little maybe prickly with it." I mean, and both of them so well written. They're both really excellent writers.
Like, they're both really They both know how to express themselves. Yeah.
All right. People, I'm going to start asking questions, and please know that we got so many on social media. We're getting so many here. Please know that we will answer some now, but on this week's podcast episode, we will answer a bunch more. So that will drop on Thursday, and we will ask. It's going to be like a Dean Prairie Fest for Thursday.
Wow. I mean, I'm going to get like 3 episodes. It's just unbelievable.
Well, it's a big deal. It's a big deal. Okay. Dana Aman. Hi, Dana. I know who you are. Hi, Dana. Hi, Dean. I've heard you were born in Canada, but your family was in California since before the gold rush. Can you explain about that?
So, Dana, my father was stationed in Canada during the years following the Korean War, as a great many, and he served in the United States Air Force. The United States military had presence in northern Canada because there was great anxiety in the Cold War that the Russians or the Soviets would come over the North Pole and attack the continental United States. And my father was part of the early warning system that extended all across North Canada. That's how I happened to be there.
And it came in handy too later, didn't it? For your acting career, directing, producing. What did you do?
I mean, look, I was born in Canada, so I have a Canadian birth certificate.
Right.
But there were a couple of times where it really did. Having that Canadian birth certificate really did pay off a couple of times. It hasn't been like, it certainly wasn't like wasn't like oil strike, but there were some nice things that came as a result of that. And I had the choice at 21. I could choose Canadian citizenship or U.S. citizenship. And because my whole family were U.S. citizens and focused primarily in California, there was no question that I was going to choose U.S. citizenship, and never regretted that at all, obviously.
Look, Martha Keller, is that Martha from Austria? Will the book
Martha
be sold?
From Austria. Hello, Martha from Austria.
Will the book be sold on Dean's eBay?
Martha, you should know you are in the book. You are, Martha, if you're listening, you are in the book. That's all I'll say. It's very brief, but you're there.
Will your book be sold on Dean's eBay shop? Call me manly.
No.
You can get it most anywhere else books are sold.
Yeah, I think we're going to go through. I mean, I think my personal selling of the book is going to be at events. I do not want to be in the retail book selling business. It's just I will leave that to the professionals. So, if you buy it through Amazon or through Barnes and Noble or your local bookstore, there's also an audiobook that's coming out. There'll be an ebook that will be a quick download. So there will be
really asking about that. Yeah.
So there'll be lots. This book will be available in all the forms that books take. Look, I don't know about Braille. I can't answer that question. I don't know how it's going to work in terms of special needs publication or extra large print. Although an ebook, you have that capacity. You can change the font size. So if you need larger font size, anybody who needs that knows that they can read an ebook and turn up the print as big as reasonable to be able to read it. So the book is going to be available in all various forms that we see books come out in today.
Dean, did you just see the title card come up and say your book was #1 new release on Amazon?
They have, Amazon has about 100 categories.
Doesn't matter. You're #1, baby.
I've been #1 in a number of different categories. And I was gratified to log in the other day and see that my book was selling more than Matthew Perry's book.
Wow.
Which just sort of like, you're kidding me. It was he's got an amazing story, and I didn't write about him in the book, but I met him years ago before any of the Friends thing happened. And you could sort of see all the stuff that went on with him in that brief meeting years ago. But what an incredibly gifted guy. I mean, just like, what a sadness that he is gone.
Yeah. Okay. Jamie Lynn asks, what do you most admire about either the Little House Almanzo or the historical one? And also, do you want to say why I'm saying Almanzo instead of Almanzo?
Well, so I'll answer that question first. Almanzo. So sort of the Cole Porter thing: tomato, potato, Almanzo. It's all the same thing, but I always blame Lucy Flippin for mispronouncing the name. It's so not fair to Lucy, because she just was doing what was told. But I'll tell you, when the episode started airing in the fall of 1979, the letters, just this huge outpouring of letters saying, you are mispronouncing this name. Well, by the time that the episode started airing, there were already 7 or 8 episodes in the can. There was no turning back on this.
Yeah.
And Michael was not a guy who was going to shift. I mean, maybe we could have done it subtly, but he just wasn't going there. He made the decision ultimately, and I have to assume that he made the decision because Michael made all those decisions. But it wasn't until 2008, when I was in Almanzo's childhood home in Malone, New York, where I heard Laura Speaks, a 27-second CD where I hear Laura's voice, probably recorded in her 60s or 70s, where she very clearly mentions in the 27 seconds about the man of the house, Almanzo. So I knew this was 2008. And that's when I finally had the proof that all the people who had sent letters years ago were right. Now it's just a nice piece of, it's just for the fun piece of trivia. And I am just for those who are full-on book aficionados, and I know here at littlehouseontheprairie.com, there are a significant number of book aficionados.
Yeah.
I am all in on Almanzo now. He's Almanzo. I don't reject my television name at all.
Well, you know my rule. Yes, my rule, and I think we can all apply this, and so let's create peace amongst the Prairie Bonnethead fans, which is the book, we can allude to him as Almanzo. The TV show, he's our Almanzo, and that's my rule. I'm going to stick to it.
Okay. That's cool. That may require more thinking than I'm capable of at this point, but I think that's a good rule.
Yeah, I mean, there's got to be a rule. Otherwise, there's going to be street fight. It's going to be Jets versus Sharks. It's going to be, what is equivalent to that?
Yeah.
Wait, did we actually answer the last question? What was the question?
I loved Farmer Boy. I mean, that's where you really, in Laura's books, that's where you really get to know a young Almanzo, book version Almanzo, as a 9-year-old boy, and his love of horses and his wonderful family in upper state New York. And I think that always sticks with me about that book is the food, the voluminous amounts of food. This boy ate apple pie at every meal, breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and ham and vegetables and bread. And it was such a contrast to the life that Laura wrote about with her family on the plains, where they really had so little to eat so much of the time. Almanzo's life as a boy was a wonderful contrast. One of the things as Almanzo advances in the book, so when we get to little town on the prairie in these happy golden years. I love the way she writes, and I love the conversations that she writes, particularly the conversation. And it's one of my favorite moments in the books where Almanzo asked her if she would accept a ring. And of course, her answer was, it depends on who's offering it. And then he says, well, what if it was me? And she said, it would depend on the ring.
Brilliant.
I mean, for a 17-year-old girl, 16, 17-year-old girl, now, you know, when Laura wrote this, she was approaching 70 by the time she wrote all this. She had some perspective on all this. But I thought it was a very powerful statement of, you know, of female empowerment for her to write in that era about Laura's intentionality about the ring and how she just was fully in command, the way Laura wrote her, of what was going to happen to her. And when she said to him so clearly, I don't ask me to say obey in the wedding ceremony, when she said yes, don't ask me to say obey. And he, of course, and I love this about the way she wrote him, that he would never ask her or insist that she say obey. And she went on to explain, I just could never obey somebody I didn't agree with on something. I just really, what a wonderful example for young women about independent thinking and running your life the way you want to run your life. There are many things we can't always control, but we do have some agency, some of those things. And I love the way Laura wrote about that stuff. And I have total respect for the way Almanzo responded in those moments.
It shows a lot about who he was, that he had a modernity about equality with his wife, that very rare for that time. So yeah, we like that. And also in the TV series, I feel like Almanzo really had a transition from being, you know, kind of a male, you know, so he had his moments of male chauvinism, but then he really, you know, he had an arc. I will admit there are some moments where I was like, Laura, don't marry him. Don't do it, girl. You in trouble. But then you change. It's good. You soften.
Well, you know, thank you, Michael. I mean, you know, Michael to create conflict and give Laura a moment's pause, and then he redeemed himself in some way.
Exactly.
So that's
Natalie Bottega asks, if you hadn't been cast in A Little House on the Prairie, how would your life have been different? Do you think you would have still continued in acting, or would your career have taken a different path? Good question, Natalie.
It's a great question. And of course, it's an impossible question to answer accurately. But I think at that point in time, I was all in and wanting to pursue this. So I think I would have stayed with it. I can't tell you how long I would have stayed with it. You know, I continued working as an actor for right around 20 years, you know, and made the change in the late 90s into the early 2000s, shifting direction. But certainly the fact that I was there for 20 years was directly a result of having been cast in Little House. So everyone needs that something.
Yeah.
But you need some affirmation. I'm always blown away by colleagues of mine, friends of mine who have pursued acting without, and have done it for years with very little. Not that they haven't had affirmation, because they have, but they haven't had affirmation on that level. And I know that affirmation on that level was very important to me.
Yeah, and most actors, the majority of actors, never get that. It doesn't mean they're not working, but the majority of them don't ever attain that kind of notoriety. And even if it's just for a moment of time, a notoriety. Yeah.
It's a very I'm very fortunate.
Yeah. And your trajectory into Little House, I mean, again, it's so interesting in the book how it all sort of led to that thing that just seemed very destined for you. I feel very positive about that. Okay,
Yeah.
Anna Margaret Kleiner asks, who was your best friend on the set? The person you felt closest to? Oh, I love this question. I don't think I've ever asked you this. Thanks, Anna.
Yeah.
Who is your BFF?
I think it was probably Catherine McGregor. I was just totally enamored by her talent.
Yeah.
Her appetite creatively was voracious, and she loved doing the work. And I think the thing that made the difference, because people have asked this for the year, and they said, well, why not Michael? Why wouldn't it have been Michael? He was the guy, but it was the guy. The challenge, or the thing that made Catherine so easy for me to connect with, one, I grew up in a very strong, matriarchally dominated family. So I felt like I had an empathy and an ability to connect with women of any age.
Yeah.
On a very natural level. But as important as that is, Catherine loved talking about acting, and she loved talking about the work. And she was opinionated about everything. I didn't agree with all of her opinions, but she was unabashedly willing to say what she thought about anything. And that was really, really fun. I wish I'd had that. I wish I could have been blessed enough to have that kind of relationship with Michael. But the reality is, and I think everyone in our cast, and I think the young children came the closest to having that relationship with Michael. So I think for Melissa,
I'm sure to get to switch gears. Yeah.
Kids didn't want anything from him. And I think that's a big difference. The kids just loved playing with Pa, and he got to just be Pa. Everyone else knew not only was Michael the star of the program, he was, this great character, but he was also the executive producer, the director, and the writer. I mean, when you were dealing with Michael, you were dealing with the four most important people on any series, and right. Your fate on that series was really contingent about what he was thinking about you at a given time. So, it was Michael had to keep some distance between himself and the cast. He was very funny. He told great stories. But you never really felt like you could get behind the Carrera sunglasses unless you were acting with him. And then he let you right in. Then, I love the way Pat Laberto talks about this, where Michael would let you into his eyes. And actors understand what that means. Yeah. You really felt like you were communicating with him. When he was not acting, inevitably there were the sunglasses or the sunglasses, create area between you and them. And there's protection, particularly in a pair of dark glasses. You don't have to know anything about yourself with a pair of dark glasses on. And we spent a lot of time working out in the hot sun at Big Sky Movie Ranch. He had a lot of time when he had, those dark glass aviator kind of glasses on. You just didn't know what he was thinking a lot of the time. And yet he was always.
It sounds like my conservatory experience. Yes. Constant fear. Robert McCullough asked, Dean, did your moral values change while working on Little House on the Prairie?
I don't think so at all. I think my big learning years, really just sort of discovering what I felt about the world, did not happen during the Little House years. I was still in a pretty big bubble during those years. I think it was, 15 years after Little House, as I'm approaching my 40s, when I really started to get the truest sense of who I was as a person. And maybe that's late in the game. I don't know, but it happens when it happens. And I would say this, though, it's a great question. I don't think my moral values and morals have never changed, but I think I am, as anybody I think I'm more nuanced in my thinking. The world is not nearly as black and white for me as it was when I was a kid. The world is much greater now than it was then. I've definitely had metamorphosis on a lot of things sort of ideologically, but I think morally, I am the same person.
Amy Wordzek asks, any plans to visit Nashville on the book tour?
You know, we might Nashville when we're going to be at Johnny Cash's farm in
Great.
September, I think, which is just outside Nashville. We're doing an event there. I love Nashville. I produced my Pa's Fiddle special. I sang at the Grand Ole Opry in Nashville in 1980, you know, something on a lark. I was invited to sing there, did, and loved it. And this is in their huge arena on a Friday night broadcast. I mean, it was just, you know, it was pretty, or maybe it's a Saturday night broadcast. It was pretty cool. I did Pa's Fiddle there in Hendersonville. Nashville's a great, great city. I mean, more music comes out of Nashville of every genre than every other major city in America, if not the whole world combined. Nashville is truly Music City. It's a great place to be.
Are you traveling a lot for your book tour, or is it primarily California and then when you go on your Little House events? Or are you doing?
Well, I think there are some separate events, but most of the travel that I'm doing is Little House related. And, you know, and I think that's really the best place to be traveling, because Little House fans come out, people who love the program come out to see us, and those people, it's the awareness of those events is quite good. And so it's a logical place to be. I would go any place to sign and present this book, and talk about it. Now, only Pamela, if you'll be there to help me, you know, to help lead that conversation.
I would. I would love it. I'm dying. I'm not going to be there this week in Los Angeles for you. I just feel so bad about it. But anyway, that's a separate conversation. Prairie Man, My Little House, Life and Beyond is 10% off on Amazon today. So everybody click on this link, go to Amazon, get Dean's book. It's lovely. It truly is. It's a really warm and informative and revealing, yet not too revealing book. And I think it's such a great addition to the Little House bibliothèque that's starting.
Which is pretty extensive. Yeah, there's so much. You know, I know we are speeding towards wrapping this up. I just want to say, and I know people who have heard me through the years in various forums, I think people know this is true, but it can't be said enough. Little House has been the great, great thing in my life. And I am honored and gratified to have a connection to both the television series and, because of that, to the books themselves, having played this character that is such an important part of the Laura Ingalls Wilder legacy. It has just been joy to be connected to this and to support what it means. And I believe in it totally. And that has made it very special. I've never had a moment's doubt as to whether Little House was something that I really wanted to be attached to. You know, in the big thematic sense, it is so good and so special, and it's so additive to people's life experience in terms of just the confirmation of values and decency and honesty and perseverance. So many good things come out of the Little House reads, both in the books and through watching the television series, and I'm so honored to be a part of it.
Well, we love you. You're our one and only #imaginary boyfriend TV show version, Wilder. Please, everyone, get a copy of his book. Also, again, I am reiterating this. We are going to answer many more of these questions on the podcast, which will become, we launch on Thursdays. Right. So Little House 50 podcast, we will answer more of these questions because they're also good. And also, a lot of these questions have already been answered on the podcast. So go back and listen because we have answered a lot of them. Final question. Have you actually had cinnamon chicken? And do you?
Never.
I know.
I never have it. And Yeah, Catherine and I have talked about it. So I cannot finish this 50th anniversary year without having cinnamon chicken somewhere.
I know
So
people say they have
happen.
made cinnamon chicken, so send in the recipes, people. Like, ship us a
I'd love
Tupperware.
Yeah.
I
Catherine
think it's a big
would love to see a recipe of cinnamon chicken that she could really connect with. If people have the official Dean Butler, send your cinnamon chicken recipes to us. Yeah. And as we're getting ready to say goodbye, thanks to Friendly Family Productions, thanks to LittleHousePrairie.com, which has become such a hub in the wheel of all things Little House. So thank you for all of that. Thanks for having us today.
Yeah, and they've been so supportive of us and of Dean and the podcast and all the books and all the stuff. And yeah, couldn't do it without their support, really. So yeah, thanks everybody. And we'll wrap it up. Dean, you have one more sleep before the book is out. What are you going to do tomorrow morning when you wake up?
I don't know. Maybe I don't know. I haven't been sleeping much at night these days, so it's sort of like I sleep hard for a couple of hours and then I'm up rolling around, and I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. But tomorrow's a very busy day with the podcast and the signing in Simi Valley. I'm hitting the ground running tomorrow.
You sure
all
are.
day.
Yeah. It's so exciting. Okay, so you have just say a couple more things about your book signings coming up this week. Tomorrow, where are you going to be?
The open book on Cochrane in Simi Valley, and it's just look for the open book in Simi Valley. I don't think that's going to be a tough one to find. And then on Thursday, that's 12 to 3 p.m. in the afternoon, and then on Thursday evening, the 27th, at the Grove at Barnes & Noble, the mecca of Southern California book signings. We're there. I'm there with Allison Arngrim. The podcast trio is together this week doing Prairie Man events, which I'm so grateful for. Allison will be there because she's local. She can come, and we'll be at the Grove, and always a hoot to be with Allison.
I can't wait till you come to New York. It's going to be so good. I don't know when that's going to be, but it has to happen. The
fall.
Oh, the fall. Okay, good. Great. Yeah. All right. I'll wrap things up. Everyone, thank you so much for joining us. More of these questions will be answered, I promise. So tune in on Thursday to the Little House podcast. And Dean, congratulations.
Thank you, Pamela. Thank you for being here. You are a wonderful, sweet breath of fresh air of all things related to Little House. You're awesome.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, everyone. We're going to sign off. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.